ABC's Terry Moran has committed career suicide. I think of the worst presidential interviews of all time. This has got to be the top three, top 10, arguably top two, maybe even the worst. It's fine if you don't like the president, but there's a certain amount of respect and effort. I mean, some of these gotcha questions are so immature. And clearly, instead of trying to move the country forward on issues and perhaps make a mark in history, Terry blew his chance to actually ask questions that could help the country to move forward, and instead is sticking to the narrative of and just flat out lying of this. Illegal criminal aliens are U.S. citizens, and even though they've had all way more due process than they're due by law, they still need to be here and get better benefits than veterans, and just all of the shenanigans and horrible fraud that has been sneaking into our government over the last whatever 30, 40, 50 years. So I jumped 5 minutes into the interview and got past all the fluff, but just shameful. Terry should be totally ashamed of himself. Just one of the most cringe-worthy presidential interviews I've ever seen.
Maybe the border is the most significant because our country was really going bad. They were allowing people to come in from prisons, as you know, and you've heard me say it, but you've heard a lot of people say it. Prisons, mental institutions, gang members, murderers. We had many murders, 11,888, they think. Some murdered more than one person. So you had murderers coming in, you had everybody coming in, and not just South America, from all over the world. They were emptying their prisons into our country. And now it's totally closed down. And you've seen just yesterday, they announced 99.9%. Nobody thought that could happen. And it happened quickly, very quickly. And I think that's very significant. But we're doing other things that are very significant. Results will take a little bit longer because it's one of those, it's complicated. It's many years of trading abuse. We've been abused by other countries for years and years. They laughed at us. They thought we were stupid people, and we're fixing it. And I think that's going to be very, very important. But
we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, I would really say that the border is so important.
And we'll get there. Immigration, huge,
yeah.
And we're going to get there. But I want to start with the economy, the number one issue for so many people, for just about everybody. It's one of the main reasons that you're back in this office. And now we have this trade war with China that Moody's and other analysts say is going to cost American families thousands of more dollars per year. And there is a lot of concern out there. People are worried. Even some people who voted for you saying, I didn't sign up for this. So how do you answer those concerns?
Well, they did sign up for it, actually, and this is what I campaigned on. I said that we've been abused by other countries at levels that nobody's ever seen before. We were losing $3 to $5 billion a day on trade. We were losing $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion a year, not sustainable. They were taking advantage of us like they've never. I could have left it that way, and at some point there would have been an implosion like nobody's ever seen. But I said, no, we have to fix it. I've wanted to do this for many years. I had the best economy during my first term. We had a tremendous economy, tremendous success. And we did tremendous numbers of tariffs we took in a lot of money from tariffs, China in particular, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. We had no inflation, as you know. We had an incredible economy. We're given credit for a great economy. But I said, we have to fix this. Otherwise, it's just not self-sustaining. We got involved.
A lot of that is bird flu.
And by the way,
right?
there were plenty of eggs for Easter, which we just went through. There were plenty of eggs for Easter. They were saying you won't have enough eggs for Easter. My secretary did a fantastic job on eggs. Groceries are down. Everything's down.
Okay.
Interest rates are the same. Interest rates should be down. But we have a Federal Reserve that wants to be stubborn. They want to be cute.
We'll get to that. You said something a couple of weeks ago that struck me. You said concerning the tariffs, which economists say are going to raise prices, you said, quote, hang tough. Yeah. It won't be easy. You said that to the American people. Is that what Americans should expect, some hard times?
I've said that during my campaign. Look, we won a campaign. by a lot. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by a lot. You know, we had a tremendous campaign. I said all of these things during my campaign. I said, you're going to have a transition period. We've been ripped off by every country all over the world. They're laughing at us. They thought we were stupid people, and we were. And I said, that's not going to happen. We're not
But
going to let that happen.
hard times are ahead?
I don't think so. I
Hang
think
tough.
great times are ahead. Look, since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down,
Hard times are ahead. Like just riveting journalism. Hard times are ahead.
egg prices are down, many things are down, just about everything. You know, you don't have to make more money
They
now.
source their products overseas, and now they're looking at an extinction
I've
event.
been here.
It's a disaster for them.
I've been here for 3 months. I've taken a trade deficit down to a
And of course, yes, the trade war can have some horrible negatives, but like all media, there's very few talking about the positive. China is in free fall, collapse, economic collapse. They're claiming they can outweight us, but this is going to diversify supply chains around the world and stop China from bullying everybody around and acting as a, anti-Western government for the world.
number that's very, very starting to get really good. I just got here. We had a country that it was not sustainable what Biden did to this country between the open borders where criminals poured into our country.
Undeniable fact that illegal crossings at the southern border have plummeted, a staggering decline. But there are questions about your methods. And so I want to ask
About my message?
Methods. About your methods. How you're
They
accomplishing
seem to
this.
work.
Do you acknowledge that under our law, every single person who gets deported gets a hearing first to make their case?
Well, are we
Okay, so and to their credit, because Trump doesn't, he always answers, "Oh, well, we our lawyers figured out yada yada yada." So I've watched hours and hours of debate and lawyers and everybody talk about what the actual due process is. And my understanding is if you are not a US citizen, your due process is one hearing to confirm your status. And if you are not a US citizen or not on the track to be a US citizen, that is all you get. That's it. You're done with. Now the Garcia guy that everybody keeps talking about, he had many court times. He had a trial, full-blown trial to assess if he was a risk to the public. The answer was a hard yes. I mean, obviously he beat his wife. He was arrested with fellow gang members. And the only reason why the Supreme Court made the judgment that they did about trying to bring him back is because when he was deemed a risk to society and was going to be deported, his lawyer did a Hail Mary and said, "Oh, well, since he's a gang member, because he's a gang member," and his own lawyer said he's a gang member, that he is at risk of getting killed by rival gangs going back to his home country. So that was another tactic to delay, to add to the legal system, to get him to go somewhere else other than his home country. That's what this whole thing's about. Nobody talks about it. He has had more due process than most American citizens because our system is completely broken.
talking about people that are citizens of our country or not?
No, you're not deporting citizens at this point.
Well, let me ask you, did they get hearings when Biden allowed 21 million, because I think the number's 20 million people to flow into our country? You had 21 million people that came into our country through a stupid open border, and they were prisoners, and they were people that you don't want, in many cases, in our country, right? They came from all over the world. They came from the Congo. They came from South. They came from all over the world. We're talking about some of the roughest countries in the world they had here, including terrorists, by the way. Now,
But the
did
law-
we give them a hearing when they came in?
Well, the law requires that every single person who is going to be deported gets a hearing first. Do you acknowledge that?
I'll have to ask the lawyers about that. All I can say is this.
And again, Trump is being mentally lazy here because if they have been in the country for less than, I can't remember what it is, 3 to 6 months, If someone has crossed the border illegally in less than 3 to 6 months, they are not entitled to anything. They're not entitled to a hearing. They're not entitled to any due process. There is a specific law that says you're gone. They can just deport you immediately. And that is just Trump being mentally lazy. This is something that's been talked about. And ABC is taking advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, again, off in the weeds, not talking about what actually matters.
If you're going to have 21 million people, and if we have to get a lot of them out because they're criminals, we're going to have to act fast. We can't. Do you think we can give 21 million trials? Let's say each trial takes 2 weeks. Is that what you want us to do?
The law
Give
is the
21
law,
million?
sir.
The law is the law. Well, the whole system is broken. And what is the law is the law? It doesn't mean anything. It's just talking points. It's like he's got a little scorecard of things to say to rally all these people who are raging and angry and don't know why. So basically, no substance here, just continuing the same ridiculous argument.
The law is the law, and you're
The law
sworn
doesn't
to
say anything
uphold it.
about trials.
No, not trials, hearings. I said
These
hearings.
people came in, they're not citizens. They came in
Hearings, trials, splitting hairs, nobody cares.
illegally. They came into our country
Right.
illegally.
And
We
there's-
have to get them out.
There's a legal process for that. All right, let's talk about the Venezuelans. You deported more than 200 Venezuelans to that prison in El Salvador. You say they're violent, they're gang members, they're terrorists. Many of them don't have a criminal
are,
record
by the way.
at all.
Well-
And notice how every question is phrased like it might be untrue. Disrespectful, dishonest journalism, totally ridiculous.
I'm not so sure about that if you take a look.
I want to
When
read you something.
Excuse me, when you look at those people, they were violent people. They were violent people.
But many of them don't have a criminal record
Go
at this
ahead.
point.
I don't know.
want
That's
to read
what
you
you
something.
say.
Well, it's based
Go
on
ahead.
their lawyer, what their lawyers
Go
have
ahead.
said. Okay.
Go ahead.
Every criminal defense attorney is going to say that someone's not a criminal. I mean, just total waste of time.
Joe Rogan said this. Joe Rogan, one of the leading podcasters, Trump supporter, about the deportation of Venezuelans. He said, quote, rounding up gang members and shipping them to El Salvador with no due process, he said it was dangerous, and added, quote, we got to be careful that we don't become monsters while we're fighting monsters. Is Joe Rogan right?
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
And by the way, guys, the other thing no one's talking about is Venezuela went from one of the worst countries in the world to one of the safest, most thriving, whatever you want to call it, third world. I mean, they are in rapid recovery. The perfect example of you've got to stop all of this. These people are okay to commit crime, not these people. And it just causes unrest with the population. You enforce crime on everyone equally, and you stop all of this corruption and just silliness. It's really sad.
We want to be careful, and we are careful. We're doing something that has to be done. We have a country that's very sick. Joe Biden, and it's not him because I don't even think he knew what the hell was happening, but the people around him are vicious people. And what they've done to the country is unbelievable. They've allowed 21 million people to pour into our country. Many of these people are criminals. They've allowed you mentioned Venezuela, the jails of Venezuela to be emptied into the United States. Do you know Venezuela crime is way down? Way, way down. You know why? Because their criminals are now living happily in the United States of America, and we're getting them out. And I was elected to get them out, and we're getting them out.
Under the law.
And we're getting them out fast, and we're getting them out legally. Now, in some cases, we have judges. In some cases, they're radical left judges. What happened the other day where a judge was protecting a criminal was horrible. And I think she's got big problems, frankly. And there are a couple of them like that.
I want to talk about one
Wait
man.
a minute.
Yep.
We have to be treated fairly by judges. And we're not being treated fairly by all judges.
Oh, that's a subject. So you're saying that you don't like some of the rulings, some of the court orders?
I think the rulings will be overturned, yeah.
All right. Well, let me ask you about one man and one court order. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's the Salvadoran man who crossed into this country illegally, but who is under a protective order that he not be sent back to El Salvador. Your government sent him back to El Salvador and acknowledged in court that was a mistake. And now the Supreme Court has upheld an order that you must return him facilitate his return to the United States. What are you doing to comply?
Well, the lawyer that said it was a mistake was here a long time, was not appointed by us, should not have said that, And just so you understand, the person that you're talking about, you're making this person sound, this is a MS-13 gang member, a tough cookie, been in lots of skirmishes, beat the hell out of his wife, and the wife was petrified to even talk about him, okay? This is not an innocent, wonderful gentleman from Maryland.
I'm not saying he's a good guy. It's about the rule of law. The order from the Supreme Court stands, sir.
You came into our country illegally.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
But the court has ordered you to facilitate that.
I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers that don't want to do this.
But the buck stops in this office.
No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
Supreme Court says what the law is.
Listen.
Instead of arguing like a middle schooler or high schooler, why wouldn't you dive into Trump's belief system and what is the actual rationale on why he's doing it and why he's not, instead of all these vague. I mean, it's like we're watching, a disgruntled girlfriend trying to break up with her boyfriend in middle school or high school or something. Just totally, utterly disrespectful, horrible interview.
I was elected to take care of a problem it was a unforced error that was made by a very incompetent man, a man that turned out to be incompetent, that you always said was wonderful, a great genius, right? And now you find out, all of the media now, they're saying what a mistake they made. A man who was grossly incompetent allowed us to have open borders where millions of people flowed in. I campaigned on that issue. I wouldn't say it was my number one issue, but it was pretty close.
Right up there.
I campaigned on that issue. I've done an amazing job. I have closed borders. He said you couldn't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it. It would never happen. Well, it happened, and it happened very quickly. Wait a minute. When we have criminals, murderers, criminals in this country, we have to get them out, and we're doing it.
By law.
And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
And notice the constant interruptions, constantly trying to cut him off. Just totally insane interview.
There's a dispute
Well,
over that.
wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
And guys, if you dig into this, it's not interpreted. It is literally the official. When you become a gang member, they have their own special little symbols for each the M, the S, and the 1-3. And the reason why this is just the most deceptive, evil mass media deception is they're saying it was photoshopped because they released a picture showing what each tattoo means, the MS-13. And instead of reporting about that and diving into how the gang works and explaining it to everyone, they're flat out lying and saying that the actual tattoos were photoshopped. Just total utter, like, we have to have some sort of laws for purposely, because now it's just this constant misreporting, misrepresentation until there's a lawsuit. And now a day or two later they're retracting it, trying to avoid the lawsuit, say, oh, we made a mistake, we didn't understand. Just, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's totally, all of the major media who keep saying it's a Photoshop should be ashamed of themselves.
Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
Okay, he's lying. Look at the look on his face. Look at look at his face. He knows he's lying. He knows he's being gotcha. Like, just what a just totally piece of shit human being. This guy is going to be remembered as just the weakest presidential interview of all time. Just look at a little smirk on his face. Oh, aren't I so smart?
It was Photoshop. So let me.
And again, it wasn't Photoshop. Like, I mean, there's just no way he doesn't know he's lying. It's just totally ridiculous.
It was Photoshop, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay.
I knew
But
this
I
would
picked
come.
you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13
All right,
tattooed.
we'll agree to disagree. I want to
Terry,
move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
And you think
agree
it
to
was
disagree.
Photoshop? Well,
Here we go. Here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He
Fair
had
enough.
MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine,
No, no,
sir.
Terry.
I want to
Total liar. You don't need to be an expert. Like, just total deceptive, evil reporting.
get to
Terry,
Ukraine.
no. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why
All right.
people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They
Take
weren't
a look
there,
at the
but they're
photograph.
there now, right?
No,
but they're there
in
now.
your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
he's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
All right, well, we'll take a look at that.
It's you do
We'll take a
such a
look at that.
disservice.
We'll take a look at
Why
that,
don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something
All right,
else?
it's contested. Ukraine.
Coming up, the Russia-Ukraine.
No, I think that's enough. It's just, a lot of people question why he even tries to work with the left wing media at all. But to his credit, he does. But it is truly sad. There could have been some good conversation and enlightened and moved forward on some of these subjects. Instead, just the same silly, distracting arguments as always.